الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا وعظيمنا وحبيبنا محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أوصي وأوصيكم بتقوى الله. قال تعالى: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما كان المؤمنون لينفروا كافة فلولا نفر من كل فرقة منهم طائفة ليتفقهوا في الدين ولينذروا قومهم إذا رجعوا إليهم لعلهم يحذرون. وقال النبي صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم: طالب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم. وعن النبي صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم: فقيه واحد أشد على شيطان من 1000 عابد. أما بعد. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the full amount of blessings and barakah and tawfiq in this blessed month of Rajab. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enter us in a blessed state, to allow us to enter the month of Sha'ban in the coming weeks in a blessed state, and allow all of us to witness the month of Ramadan. The Ottomans, when they decided to expand the size and the breadth of Masjid Nabawi, the Haram, they made a strategic decision. Every empire before them had expanded the Haram. First, the Prophet ﷺ expanded Masjid Nabawi himself in the 7th year of Hijrah. Then, during the time of the Khilafah of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala, he expanded Masjid Nabawi. And then after that, one of the Umayyad Khalifs, and after that, one of the early Abbasid Khalifs, and after that, one of the Mamluk Khalifs. And then it came time for the Ottomans. So the Sultan, he gathered together 500 of the top craftsmen and artisans in the empire and brought them to Istanbul. And he settled them in a particular region in the outskirts of Istanbul. And he told all of the artisans, all of those 500 craftsmen, he said, you will embark on a special project. He said, you will have children, first of all. You'll have at least one more child. And those that aren't married, you will marry and have a child. And you will then teach your trade, your craft, to that particular child. And after you teach your trade and craft to that child, when they reach the teenage years and they become very skilled in that craft, then they will begin their training in the Shari'i sciences, in the sciences of Islam. We will educate that child for 25 years, and they will become ulama. They will complete their studies in the deen. They will take their ijazah from the ulama that give ijazah in the royal madrasa, in the imperial madrasa in Istanbul. So the children will first be trained by their fathers in the craft of their fathers. Then, after they become very skilled and proficient in that craft, they will then go on to study the deen. And the Sultan said first they will memorize the Quran. And after they memorize the Quran, then they will go into the other studies of the Shari'i sciences. Fiqh, Aqidah, Tafsir, Hadith, Usul al-Fiqh, logic, etc. and so forth. They will be masters in the deen and masters in the arts. They will have credentials in arts and in sciences, the Shari'i sciences. But their Islamic training will take 25 years. That's on top of the primary training in that craft and art. And after that 25-year period, then you bring them to me, and then they will begin their work. They will be the new construction workers and artisans and craftsmen to build and expand Masjid Nabawi. Nobody else will touch it except for these 500 trained craftsmen. When they reached that period, those 500 workers were in the presence of the Sultan. And he said, you've now completed your training. This is over 25 years later. This is a new Sultan now. He says, now you are ready to be sent to Medina to begin the grand plan of expanding Masjid Nabawi. But there are 3 conditions to your work. Number 1, anytime you step foot in Masjid Nabawi to begin your work, whether it's hammering a nail, moving a brick, doing calligraphy, taking down a wall, anytime you enter that place to start work, you must be in wudu at all times. If you break your wudu, you must stop your work, go make wudu, and go back and continue working. That's condition number 1. Condition number 2, throughout the entire period of your work day, you must be in either tilawat of Quran or salawat ala nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's it. If you must request new tools or new equipment, or you need help in something, any kalam that is daruri, any kalam that is absolutely necessary, you're allowed to speak that kalam, but nothing else. You cannot talk about anything worldly in the hadra, in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ, and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala an, and Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala an, and in this blessed place. No kalam of laghu, no vain talk, just kalam related to work, tilawah of Quran, salawat ala nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He even commanded the calligraphers who used to go up into the dome to do calligraphy, and some of them, we have their recorded histories, some of them used to finish their calligraphy while suspended upside down. Suspended from the ceiling upside down. They used to put the finishing touches on the calligraphy, and even those artists would be in constant salawat ala nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam or tilawah of the Quran. The construction project, the renovation, the expansion took 15 years, and it was completed. 15 years. The leader of the Muslims told them, we have an expansion project. In order to start the project, he recognized the importance of not just people who knew the arts and the crafts and the required material knowledge to get the job done. That wasn't what was the priority. Anybody can build. Any craftsperson can hammer a nail. But there was a higher standard for working in Masjid Nabawi. He wanted ulama, people who were scholars in the deen, to go and work on the material of the building. These were scholars that were produced not to teach necessarily. There wasn't a need in the empire for teachers. There wasn't a need for fatwa, like there's a need in this country to raise scholars and teachers and leaders grounded in ilm. 500 ulama were produced to expand a building. 500. They learned their technique and the deen with an investment of at least minimum 25 years. That's the way our predecessors did things. Look at the way we do things today. Ilm, knowledge, very important. Because he knew that it wasn't about getting a job done. It was about how the job gets done. The means is just as important as the end. But in the modern period, we are so driven by end results that it's easy to forego the means, or it's easy to accept any means that gets you to that end. Even if that means is controversial, unethical, makruh, etc. Sahabas, they always used to go out with the Prophet ﷺ. All of them went out, when he went out for expeditions, etc. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade that. In the beautiful ayah in Surah Tawbah, He says, وَمَا كَانَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ لِيَنْفِرُوا كَافَّةً. Don't let all the believers go out at the same time. If we think about this in a contemporary context, don't let all the Muslims go into worldly pursuits and secular sciences and there's nobody around to cultivate knowledge of the deen. فَلَوْلَا نَفَرًا مِنْ كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ مِّنْهُمْ طَائِفَةٌ. Take out a group from every segment of the community. This is in Surah Tawbah. A group from every segment of the community. From the soldiers, from the artisans, from the physicians, from the business owners, from the folks that are entrepreneurs, from the nurses, from the tradesmen, from the farmers. Take a small group from amongst every single contingency. And what do you do with those? لِيَتَفَقَّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. And train them in the sciences, in the fiqh of the deen. لِيَتَفَقَّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. So that they can gain deep knowledge, fiqh, the Quran says, of the deen. There have to be people that are reserved and protected by the community for the community. وَلِيُنذِرُوا قَوْمَهُمْ إِذَا رَجَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ. And so that when the community at large comes back to them, which is very interesting, the ayah it says, إِذَا رَجَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ. When that community, when either those soldiers that are coming back into the town or those professionals who are coming back for advice, when they raja'u, when they consult. Raja'u also means to consult, not only to come back from a place. إِذَا رَجَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ. When they go back and review what happened and consult with them. Those leaders, those scholars, those people trained in the fiqh of the deen, لِيُنذِرُوا. They can remind them of the importance of accomplishing their goals in a certain way. It can advise them, this is the way of the deen, not that. You can achieve your end by both ways, but one way is more virtuous than the other. There are two roads that lead to that objective. One is the halal, one is the haram. One is the way of the azima, one is the way of the rukhsa. One is the way that is preferred, the other is the way of doubts. One is the sirat al-mustaqim, and one is the path that is iwaj and is crooked. يُنذِرُ قَوْمَهُمْ إِذَا رَجَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ. So that they can advise on the means to the end when they are consulted, when people come back, when people require guidance. So that لَعَلَّهُمْ يَحْذَرُونَ. So that the community as a whole can be brought to a state of awareness about the dangers and pitfalls of making the wrong decisions. See, there have to be advocates in our midst that remind us of the pitfalls of making certain decisions that we deem just normal and average and routine. And that speciality, that knowledge that creates those lenses to be able to see in that way, that's the discipline of fiqh. And the scholars that adopt that, that practice that, those are our fuqaha, our scholars, our ulama. And the Prophet ﷺ used to encourage the teaching of that discipline and the training of those practitioners of fiqh and of ilm. And he used to say to his companions, radiyallahu ta'ala anhum, have you seen the gardens of Jannah? I said, Ya Rasulullah, we haven't seen any gardens of Jannah on the earth. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yes, there's gardens of Jannah here in this world. And then he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إِذَا مَرَرْتُمْ when you pass by, إِذَا مَرَرْتُمْ بِالرِّيَاضِ الْجَنَّةِ, when you are walking and you pass by the gardens of Jannah, فَارْتَعُوا, take a minute and sit and be comfortable and dwell there for a second. Don't be so in such a rush by the hustle and bustle of the modern period and by trying to get things done that you zoom by the garden of Jannah in pursuit of a depth of hell. They said, Ya Rasulullah, what are the gardens of وَمَا رِيَاضُ الْجَنَّةِ Ya Rasulullah? What's the garden of paradise on this earth, O Messenger of Allah? He said, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, حَلَقَةِ الْعِلْمِ وَفِي رِوَايَةٍ حَلَقَةِ الذِّكْرِ. It's the circles of ilm, circles of knowledge. And later on they asked, one of the Sahabas asked another companion, what did he mean by that? Because even some of the Sahabas didn't understand what a halaqah of ilm was. And Mu'adh ibn Jabal, one of the great practitioners and teachers and one of the great ulama of the Sahaba, he says it's halaqat, it's circles and classes where fiqh is taught. That's what he said. And he said, and that's where the mudarris teaches you, يُعَلِّمُهُمْ الْحَلَالِ وَالْحَرَامِ وَكَيْفَ يَتَوَضَّعُ, and how to make wudu, وَكَيْفَ أَن يُصَلِّي, and how to pray, وَكَيْفَ أَن يَتَزَوَّجُ, and how to get married, and how to divorce, and how to buy, and how to sell. What are the halal and the haram and the deep details of that? Those classes, durus, that teach knowledge, those are circles of ilm. Those aren't classrooms. Those are gardens of Jannah. And people walk by halaqat and classes all the time. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَارْتَعُوا, stop for a second. Cultivate your akhirah with the same dedication and tenaciousness and devotion that we indulge in cultivating the dunya. One of our problems is that we raise buildings before we raise people. And we construct careers before we construct and cultivate families. We're more concerned about our growth and development and our progress and our effectiveness in our workspaces than in many cases in our deen and our homes. It's a misprioritization that's there. And we have to learn to reverse that. We've become a community of institutionalization of things. Building ends, constructing ends, but the means are just as important. We used to be people who combined knowledge of the world and knowledge of the other world. Knowledge of the dunya and knowledge of the deen. That has to return. Because there's people out here in this community. When I say this community, I mean in the United States, locally, in the city, and nationally. There are people speaking about Islam and mentioning horrible things about Islam. There's people that are in the business of producing knowledge about Islam. There are institutions that 24/7, they're engaged in the knowledge production about Islam. There are funded operations that are designed to just put anything and everything out there and inform law enforcement and politicians and communities and churches and media outlets about Islam and about Muslims. There are people with talking points about Islam all day long. Islam says this and says that. People in the universities teaching, this is what Muslims believe, this is what they do. But we need our own speakers, advocates, teachers, but we need them grounded in ilm. We need them grounded in fiqh. We need to see the importance of being educated in our deen. And that education comes at a price. It does. It's a long-term project. The price is we sacrifice immediate gratitude for a long-term plan. It's the Hudaybiyah paradigm. It's the Hudaybiyah strategy. We look long term and we sacrifice what we need today. There have to be pockets and segments of each and every Muslim community where practitioners and business leaders and teachers and folks in the medical profession and taxi drivers and business owners, parents, grandparents, youth, a segment of every single contingency in the community stays back and devotes themselves, or they are devoted to knowledge of the deen, to pick this ummah up and to take it to a different place, to renovate this ummah, to expand this ummah, because we cannot meet the challenges of this contemporary society without raising, developing, cultivating local scholars. We cannot import. We can't do it. We have to develop from scratch. That means we have to prioritize, and we have to understand the value of ilm. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, faqihun wahid, one person learned in fiqh, in the knowledge of the deen. Faqihun, I mean a real faqih, not some person who is a scholar for dollars. That's not the faqih. Not some person who doesn't understand the modern world and is only focused on the books of the 6th century, reading old texts and old materials, but doesn't understand how to translate that material into today's world and make fiqh and make the deen relevant for people of today. No, the faqih is the person whose decisions are based in ilm and they're constantly relevant to the social needs, the political needs, the economic needs, and the religious needs of the Muslims and the non-Muslim. That's the faqih we need. And he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one person learned in fiqh is harder on shaitan than 1,000 regular followers. You can't beat that. You can't deny that. That's a hadith. That's a profound statement. One person learned in fiqh, faqihun wahid, who's grounded in the deen, who speaks the real language of the deen and relates the ilm to the youth and the middle-aged and the elderly and the veteran Muslim and the new Muslim and the non-Muslim. That person who knows the deen is harder on shaitan, tougher on shaitan, puts more obstacles to the plan of shaitan and his desire to disrupt the community and break apart the community and to devour the community. That one person is tougher on shaitan than 1,000 people who don't know what they're doing but claim to be Muslim. We need fuqaha. We don't have time to skirt ilm. We don't have time to look the other way. We don't have time to build businesses and not build scholars. We don't have time to establish institutions but not focus on cultivating minds. And we can't do it by sending our kids to college when they have little iman and no knowledge. It can't be done. We're in crisis mode. We have to be people of ilm. We have to focus on ilm, knowledge. We have to be people who know the Quran and the Sunnah and the meaning and the application of both, and we know science, and we know technology, and we know engineering, and we know navigation skills. We have ethics and we have science. We have art and we have the humanities, and we have technology and engineering and science as well. We need both worlds to fly. That's the time we're living in today. And we have a deficiency in that. But we must not lose hope, because the night is always dark, but the sun does rise. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, before the Dajjal comes at the end of time, the sun will rise in the west. That's one of the signs of the last day, that the sun will rise in the west. And one of the meanings is that Islam will rise in the west. Another meaning is that nur and ilm will rise in the west. And our ummah has lost the ability to contribute science and technology to the west the way that we used to contribute science and technology to the west. That's where it came from. That's where Europe got it from, was from the Muslims. from North Africa to Andalus. Then it was imported or exported from Andalus to Italy. And then from Italy it went into the Catholic world. And then later the Protestant world. And you had the Enlightenment. We aren't there now. Where we are, our contribution is in the contribution of akhlaq. That's what we have, because these people out here don't have akhlaq and morality. It's gone. We are people of akhlaq. We are people of tawheed. We are people of hidayah, people of righteousness and istiqamah. We stand up for something. We don't just give in to everything because of $1. We stand for something. And so let us remember what it is that we really stand for and what we should stand for. We stand for what's right out there and what's right in here. And the best standards, the best people who are taught to follow the Prophet ﷺ in standing up are the scholars, are the ulama. إِنَّمَا الْعُلَمَاء وَرَثَةَ الْأَنْبِيَاء. That the scholars are the inheritors of the Prophet. The Prophet said ﷺ, and he said, إِنَّمَا الْأَنْبِيَاء, the anbiya, the scholars, the prophets, they don't leave behind money. They leave behind ilm for the community. The community can get their own money, but how they use the money, when they use the money, in what way they use the money, what kind of money, the distribution of money, that's a shar'i, fiqhi, ilmi approach. It's time to stop seeing just the end. We've got to focus on the means. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst the inheritors of the deen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our children those that are amongst the fuqaha and the ulama. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspire us to be people that devote a portion of our lives to learning this deen, so that we may sacrifice and invest in the cultivation and the enhancement of this deen in this great country, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أوصي وأوصيكم بتقوى الله. قال تعالى: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم، وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت، وعافنا فيمن عافيت، وتولنا فيمن توليت، وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت، وقنا شر ما قضيت، إنك تقضي ولا يقضى عليك، إنه لا يذل من واليت ولا يعز من عاديت، تباركت ربنا وتعاليت، فلك الحمد على ما قضيت. نستغفرك ونتوب إليك، نستغفرك ونتوب إليك، نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. عباد الله اتقوا الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. أقم الصلاة.